Hi, I'm Brian Grant, and you're listening to On Time, the Brian Grant Foundation podcast about living with Parkinson's. If you want to know more about Brian Grant Foundation, go to briangrant.org.
When we think of Parkinson's disease, we may picture people around retirement age with adult children who are no longer dependent on them. But Parkinson's can affect younger people who are still working and parenting. The countless challenges of being a parent with a full-time job while living with Parkinson's can be overwhelming. In this episode, we're talking with Amber Hesford, who's a single mom living with young onset Parkinson's. Her entertaining take on living with an incurable and progressive neurologic disease is delightful. And I'm joined by co-host Brian Grant. Hello, Brian and Amber.
Hey, Heather, how you doing?
Really well. How about you?
Hanging in there.
Amber, how you doing?
Same as Brian, day by day.
Tell us a little bit about what was happening in your life before you were diagnosed with Parkinson's.
I don't even remember. I mean, which is par for the course, right? You don't remember anything with Parkinson's, but somebody asked me the other day how long I've been dealing with Parkinson's, and I was like, oh my God, I think like 8 years. And I feel like that's been my adult life. I mean, it hasn't, but it feels like it. I don't remember. I mean, I was working. My kids were really little when I was diagnosed. I think they were 7 and 9. So when I started having symptoms, that meant that they were like 4 and 6, just trying to survive single motherhood.
Yeah, you didn't really have time to process much, I imagine.
No.
But how did you first realize that something was going on with your health?
I didn't. My dad was like, you need to go to the doctor. Your hand keeps shaking. And I was like, nah, it's just I had too much caffeine or stress. I was like, it's nothing. My best friend, her hands shake, but she's always been like that. And I was like, she's like that too. It's fine. It's no big deal. He's like, no, you really need to go get it checked out. When I went to his doctor, because he was so insistent that I go, she immediately got me in to see a neurologist that week, which, you know, is like impossible to do. But she was like, no, it's either Parkinson's or MS. Like, you need to see somebody now. So I went and I saw, and then they told me it was anxiety. So it took years for something to come of it.
Well, this sounds slightly familiar.
Right?
Brian, we might have talked about this a little bit before, Brian, but did you have a slightly similar experience, Brian?
Sort of similar, yeah. But, everything was happening to me when a major part of my life was coming to an end. I was 12 years in, my knees were bad, and I knew retirement was right around the corner for me. I just figured that anything that was going on with my body had to do with that, had to do with being an NBA athlete who's put lots of miles on this body. And, when I started to have little skin tremors and finger tremors, and then I hit the hardcore depression, that's when I knew it was something other than retirement, So the thing I had going on was retirement, divorce, trying to figure out the tremor, and depression. And it kind of all came together at once, like the perfect storm. I'd watch The Perfect Storm and feel like Mark Wahlberg out there in the ocean after the boat goes down. I'm just like, I'm not going to make it.
A much taller, much better looking Mark Wahlberg, if I might say.
I mean, I could stand in, about 800 feet of water, but anything over that, I was no good. But I just saw things starting to happen and didn't really want to know at first because I was scared of what the answer might be. But then after probably a year or two, I wanted to know because I didn't know what to tell people. I wanted to be a commentator for ESPN or MSN, but I couldn't do the interviews because I had this shaking hand, and every time I'd get nervous, it would get even heavier. So it was a relief for me to find out that I had Parkinson's.
Right. And I imagine finally when you got adequately, diagnosed, Amber, you felt the same way. What were your thoughts? And
my thoughts were more like I knew it. By that point, I had already been researching for years. And even though nobody wanted to believe me or believe that's what it was, I was determined that I had already figured it out. So by the time it came around, I was like, finally, yes, I was right. Not something you want to be right about, but I always want to be right. So
having a known enemy, like you both had something you could then deal with because it was something that was familiar through the work of Michael J. Fox and others, rather than some, nefarious hidden thing. I know that that's how I felt too, at least about that part. Amber, how did you tell your sons about Parkinson's?
I told them immediately. They knew why I was going to the doctor to try to figure out why mommy shakes. So it was really, I still don't know how much they comprehend. Now even, my oldest son is like, Mom, when you get really bad, will you come live with me? In a van down by the river, by the way. So that's a hard pass for me. But I still don't think that they fully grasp what it entails and what goes on with me. Why am I so tired? Why can't Mom finish a movie with me? All those
Right.
tedious things that happen every day,
And Brian, I know that you had mentioned before in our previous interviews about how, sometimes the kids just knew Dad's having a rough time and maybe give you a little space. But, did you share some similar experiences with your kids?
I did. I mean, my two little daughters, they were little. They were like 5 and 6, 6 and 7. So they would always come home and just curl up on me, especially when I was going through the depression and my ex wasn't around. It was just me and the kids. And then as far as my older kids go, I was like Superman to them because they remembered actually being at the games and seeing me go up and down the court and guard people and people saying, your dad is this. So to them, it was kind of like, man, somebody found kryptonite for Superman because he's breaking down. So I tried to do more than I was able to do when I played. We started going to the cabin every weekend, this cabin we had up in Washington. I made sure we stayed on motorcycles and quads and, till my son Amani, who you'll meet, drove one of them up a tree. I mean, literally drove it halfway up a tree and it's crazy. But I just try to stay active with them and try not to let them allow me to have them feel sorry for me. Like now, they're in their mid-20s. My daughters are 19 and 18. I always pull the Parkinson's card out on them. Can you get that for me? Why can't you get it? Got the Parkinson's. Come on.
Excellent.
So it's a joking thing. So they've kind of grown up with it. So as I progress, they kind of progress too.
I've had the great privilege of seeing you interact with your kids, and you use humor a lot. In fact, your family was spending most of the time I saw them laughing and joking and nudging each other. There's a real camaraderie there. Amber, you use humor too. And I just love that about you. I think that a lot of people are looking at your TikToks and feeling a little bit lighter. They're expecting to get some, information that's very serious about Parkinson's, and when they click on that, and instead they're getting jokes about holistic medicine or whatever it was that someone was giving you to cure, quote unquote, Parkinson's at the time. But in addition to this, you also work full time, like really, really. And you are managing being single and working with Parkinson's and raising kids. How do you do it?
I don't know. I really don't know. I think you have to do it. I don't feel like there's like a choice. My kids need to eat. My oldest son, he's 5'10", 2 something, and he's 13. So, he's not gonna let me not feed him, So you have to do what you have to do, and I don't feel like there's time to sulk in it.
Right.
You know what? I hear what you're saying, Heather, and I hear Amber tell you how she deals with it. When she speaks, I listen because this is a single mom with how many children? Two?
Two
Two.
boys.
Okay, so I've got 8, but I had a
Oh
lot
my
of help.
God.
I had a lot of help. And everybody goes, oh, what? Oh my gosh. But having 8 and having Mighty Yee, who's been their nanny since the girls were born and Jaden and Elijah were like 3, she's been around to help. So I can't take credit for that. There's been a lot of times when I just couldn't do it or my depression was bad. And she would take care of not only them, she'd take care of me too. So I really take my hat off to you. And
But 8, my goodness.
I take my hat off to you for the work that you put in. You go to work, you come home, you deal with the kids, you do homework. Something's wrong, you got to fix it. That you're a superwoman and you're somebody to be celebrated with your effort.
Thank you. I actually, when you said the Parkinson's card right now, we were joking about it. I actually had to go out of town for work last week. And for the very first time, we asked the airline if I could pre-board. And my best friend was like, "You're using the P card. You have that P control." And I'm like, "Not the P control that I want to have, but I guess so."
Yeah. Hey, pull it out and use it. I mean, especially like the airport when you want to get in and get settled. I mean, I think that's one of the hardest walks, man. When I walk on a plane and I get stuck in the tunnel on the way to the plane, and I'm standing
Oh,
there, everybody's being still, and even if my meds are working, they'll quit working for that second because I know all eyes are on me. I'm 6'9", and I'm sitting there,
yeah.
trying to grab my hands, and then I turn around and I'm just running with sweat because of all the anxiety, and everybody's like, "Oh, does he have COVID or what's going on with this guy?
What's
What's he
going
on?
on?
What drug is he on?" That is flying is one of the tougher things for me because I always try to make sure that I can just get in there and get settled down because I get stuck on that in that tunnel out to the plane. It's all
Oh,
bad. I don't like
our
it.
our flight landed at 6:28 when our connecting flight started boarding at 6:25. And when we were telling the flight attendant, we're going to be late, can you at least notify them? She's like, "Oh, you're low or landing in D and boarding in C. You'll be fine." It was over a mile away. So by the time I got onto that connecting flight, I was trembling like a leaf in the wind.
Is this in
It was,
Dallas?
it was from LA to Phoenix.
Okay.
So the Phoenix airport, she's like, "C and D, they're right there." "No, it is not, ma'am."
Yeah, I know
So it was,
exactly what you're talking about. Those 3 ramps. You got to take like 3 whole long ramps down
yes.
one hall or walk the thing. It's crazy.
And because of all the shortages in the airlines right now, I was trying to see if I could get one of those carts to take me. They were all completely filled.
Mm.
Completely. So I was like, well, let's see if I make it. But
Traveling alone can be really treacherous. I just did it myself and I needed a whole lot of help, which we can talk about another time. That's for sure difficult.
yeah.
And I remember traveling with babies too, and one would run one way and one would run the other way. And it's just
Mm.
like, not sure which way to go. But I did want to ask, speaking of that and resources for travel and all that, what resources do you wish you had available to help you as a mom with Parkinson's?
Any resources would have been nice. I mean, I'm talking to my neurologist about, what's going on. And I'm trying to even get work accommodations taken care of. And they don't know what to tell me because people that have Parkinson's normally aren't working anymore. So I can't even begin to tell you what I would have needed to make things easier as a mom. Heather, I think I've told you this before. You were the first female that I met that had kids with Parkinson's. So I didn't know anybody that I could talk to, that I could relate to, that had struggled in any way near what I'm dealing with right now,
And just like Brian Rand's foundation, we're all drawn in. So now we get to meet each other. It's so
Yeah.
great. Because without
Yeah.
this resource, we would be a little farther apart.
Locked.
So how have your future career plans changed since you were diagnosed?
Oh, so I mentioned that I was out of town for work, and it was a leadership conference. I'm actually a manager at a credit union. And everybody was talking about, like, so what are your future career goals? What do you want to do? What is your long-term plan? And I'm like trying to stay quiet, trying to like sit in the back of the room for these questions because I'm trying to work until I go on disability. Like, I'm just trying to make it till then. I don't have plans that I can make in long term, like, these are the type of roles that I want to take on. I'm trying to survive. I'm trying to work as long as possible. And that's basically all I have. I would eventually because I know that I won't be able to do what I do forever. So I'm hoping to get into advocacy of some sort. But as far as work goes, I'm like, you can ask the next person. I'll pass on this one.
Right.
Because it's also depressing to talk about that in a room full of people that have a future that they can talk about and look forward to and, have all these aspirations when I'm like, oh, well, I'm just trying to make it through this week.
Well, you could always be, as you said, a snow globe tester or an Etch-a-Sketch quality control manager. You are cracking me up with that. Brian, I think your career plans might have changed a wee bit because of Parkinson's.
They did. I mean, I really wanted to stay connected to basketball in some way, shape, or form through the media, especially. But the thing that I find is that even with the medications they give us that work sometimes, like right now, I'm a little nervous just doing this. And so I'm going to turn. And so being on TV, no one's going to take a chance on having somebody on TV. And if they do, then I would feel like they're making an exception because they feel sorry for me or want the home audience to, let's see Brian shake, let's see Brian struggling. That's something Brian didn't want to see. Radio, the same way. I find that I lose my train of thought too often to do radio because I've been commentating for the Blazers on a couple occasions, and I'll be talking about somebody dribbling down the court and dunking it, and then all of a sudden I'll just lose my train of thought and say, what were we talking about? And so that makes me feel ignorant. So then I don't want that. But I'm always going to have a place to go and work, with Katrina, with the foundation. But as far as other things, I got to figure out my meds or something. I like doing public speaking. No, I don't. I hate it. I hate it. It's anxiety, and I just hate it.
You
I'm
make it
only
look
saying I
so
like it so you'll
easy.
hire me to come in so I can tell you how much I hate it.
You make it look so easy, doesn't he, Amber?
Oh, right. Yeah.
Yes.
No, you make it look easy. But that's it. Something I may get in with, the Portland Trail Blazers and start to maybe consider doing something with the team if they find that there's something about me that can help out. My mouth works perfectly fine. It's just all this other stuff that doesn't work. Yeah.
I often joke that sometimes when my speech is impaired, I don't think my family's too upset about that. They can finally get a word in. So, Amber, do you ever meet other young and single working moms with Parkinson's?
No. Are they there?
Yeah. Hello.
Where
Is there
are they?
anybody out there? What would you
No,
say to another working mom who was just diagnosed?
I had somebody ask me the other day, she has Parkinson's, and she's like, what should I do for work? And I'm like, girl, I don't know. I mean, of course, like, I don't even know your qualifications or anything like that, but it's tough to work. Like Brian said, there's a whole cognitive thing where I'm talking half the time and I'm like, squirrel. I forget what I'm saying mid-sentence. I have no idea what's going on half the time. So it's hard to try to pitch yourself and sell yourself when you forget what you're talking about or who you're talking about. So it's hard to give advice on that.
I have no idea what you mean. I've only done it 3 times since we began. Oh, hello. I was just thinking, though, my friend taught me something that happens whenever I forget the word. I hear the theme to Curb Your Enthusiasm. Because something's always going to be a little off with Parkinson's. And isn't that what makes us extra charming? Right, guys?
Sure.
Yeah. What about comedy influences? Since you both use comedy, I know you do because I've seen it happen. Amber, how do you feel about I'm just going to throw out some names and you can just pick one. Norm Macdonald, Gilbert Gottfried, Bob Saget. The recent deaths that seem to happen sort of like all at once. And everyone's talking about him because Norm, as an example, didn't tell anybody he was sick. So you can have things going on and comorbidities and still be a fantastic comedian, as you've so proved. So how do you feel about those comedians?
I mean, it's sad. It's sad that people don't want to share that, but I get why it's hard to be vulnerable, and it's hard to combine comedy with something that's so difficult to live through. So I get why they may not want to intermingle those two things, because sometimes people don't appreciate it. Right. I've made jokes about Parkinson's and people are like, that's not funny. Well, just because you don't have a sense of humor.
Yeah.
Um,
I've gotten a lot of flack when I was at the World Parkinson's Congress speaking. The first question I got was, "Do you think it's funny to make fun of Parkinson's
I
in
do.
front of the audience?"
I think it's really funny.
Yes. What else are we
I
going to
do. I think it's hilarious. You know,
And
I've told you before, I think that Parkinson's is the bully and it deserves to be bullied back. And so I don't get why it gets to torment
Like that.
me and every aspect of my life and I don't get to do it back to it, you know? Um, I think a lot of times when people see that and they say something to me like that, it's because they don't think that I have it. They think, look at this girl just making fun of people with Parkinson's. Um, but you know, I think that I think it's hilarious. And not just for me. Recently, oh Lord, I'm not gonna remember his name, but he did a comedian. He did a joke about when he was 13, his mom got diagnosed with Parkinson's. I don't know if you know which one I'm talking about. My son did a lip sync to it. So he says, when I was 13, my mom got diagnosed with Parkinson's, and my dad just gave up. He walked out, and so as a 13-year-old boy, I had to be the one to roll up my sleeves and say, guess I'm going with dad. Looks like mom needs some alone time. So, you know, I know that's not a true story for him, but I think it's hilarious. Like,
Right.
you know, you gotta laugh when
and
you can.
if you're not making half the audience angry or upset, you're probably not doing comedy right, because there's always going to be
Right?
literalists in there too. So, and I know that you both had the influence, but I've also often noticed like a little Bo Burnham in your work, perhaps. Has he been an
Oh,
influence on
I've used his songs several times for my looking for a new job with Parkinson's. You know, snow globe tester, etch a sketch, quality control, Polaroid picture shaker. A lot of
you?
people were really upset about that because you're not supposed to shake a Polaroid. They're the
Well,
life
then
of the party, those ones.
Outcast has it in their lyrics, "Shake it like a Polaroid."
Right?
Sure. And you make fun of the holistic medicine thing only not because you're making fun of holistic medicine, but because someone insinuated that would cure our Parkinson's. So I wanted to ask,
Constantly.
yeah, yeah.
Constantly.
And do you ever get that someone offering you essential oils to cure all your ills and so on and so forth?
Was that to me?
Yeah, Brian, do you ever get someone like
Oh, I did. See,
offering
you
you
caught
some
me in the zone.
like some version of an umbrella to hold up in a nuclear holocaust, cure all your ills?
Something. Yeah. What I was going to say about the comedian stuff was, what's his name? Rob Schneider, the guy that played Deuce Bigelow.
Yeah.
You
Yes.
remember when he's in that one where he switches bodies with the girl and the girl is
Oh, yes.
like the bathroom scene? That's my thing. He's like, "Hey, little idea is that you got to grab hold of it. She can lose balls." I'm like, "Let's out going all over the place."
Virus!
That's my deal. I always talk about my new house that I'm moving into in a month. I have a urinal. Thank God I have a urinal. I go through
Nice.
more toilet paper just cleaning up the floor after I use the bathroom.
Nice
Crazy.
work.
I mean, I could sit down, but I just wouldn't feel like a man if I couldn't stand up and use the bathroom.
Maybe I need to look into that for my boys. They don't have Parkinson's, but
Yeah.
let me tell you, they
Yeah.
can't get it in the toilet. So,
So I'd fit right in over at your house.
yep, come
We
on
did
over.
it.
I would never know the difference.
So you both work so hard at raising awareness for Parkinson's. Amber, how'd you get started on raising awareness? Like, how did this happen?
I started on TikTok during the pandemic, just like everybody else, bored doing something to pass the time since you couldn't do anything else. And I don't remember if it was my dad or my best friend that was like, you should talk about Parkinson's. Most likely because I don't cope with things very well. So they thought maybe if you talk about it, you'll be better. And actually it has been extremely helpful for me. You know, even if I wasn't helping anybody else, it was helping me talk about it. You know, people asking questions had me looking into things, researching stuff that I may not have looked into had I not been answering those questions. So it's been just as helpful to me as it has been to anybody else. So super grateful that I started it. And then it's connected me with so many amazing, wonderful people with Parkinson's, people that have other things, people that don't know what's going on with them medically. I would have never met any of you had it not been for that. So that's super crazy. It's just afforded me a lot of opportunities that I think about if I had not gotten on TikTok, like, where would I be? Like, I could definitely see dealing with depression because I wouldn't have that outlet to talk about it or joke about it.
Can I also mention, though, that let's not just talk about that application. You could use any application. If TikTok goes down or something happens, like getting banned from TikTok for using a fictitious character called Disco Donna, you'll still be able to do this anywhere. Just like Brian can do his work anywhere because you've got charisma, or as they say, charisma. It's all going to work. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So what are some things you wish people understood about Parkinson's? Amber, you first.
That you don't die from Parkinson's. I think you die with it. I don't feel like you die of it. I feel, and it's not so much that, because I mean, obviously it causes complications and puts a lot of strain on your body, and there's a lot of things that go along with it. But when I'm telling somebody that I have Parkinson's, it does not help me when you say, my uncle had Parkinson's, he died. Well, thanks. That was super motivating and uplifting. I really appreciate it.
They don't do any improv. What a setup.
So, that's one, like, that's not helpful. THC and CBD is not going to cure me. I've seen it, do great, wonderful things for other people, but it is not a cure-all for everybody. There's so many things that I wish people knew.
Cigarettes are neuroprotective. Yeah, we've heard it all. Brian, what about you? What are some things you wish people understood about Parkinson's?
I wish they understood that Parkinson's is more than just a tremor. They think, oh, you have Parkinson's, you have that shaking disease. They just deal with the shaking. Well, you want to help me chew my food and swallow correctly? Do you know that every time I go to the bathroom at night, I got to stand there an extra 10 to 15 seconds because I think it's all out. And as soon as I get ready to walk away, there it goes again. Things that other people may deal with, but I think it's the hidden things that I wish people understood about the disease, because, if it was just me shaking and nothing else, and depending on how severe the shake was, I would be okay with it. But, the rigidity, I'm starting to deal with new symptoms from rigidity in my back and my shoulder locking up and freezing. So just that part of
dyskinesia.
Yeah, well, I'm trying my damnedest to avoid that. Do you have dyskinesia?
I do, from the medication. So I have to stop taking it for a few days to kind of clear it out of my system and then start it up again, because otherwise I am like super jerky. I look like Elaine when she's dancing, on Seinfeld.
Jerky.
Yeah.
Chicken dance.
Yep. That's me.
I think you look fabulous when you dance. So I think you're all good there. I've seen Brian.
Heather dance.
Oh man.
I guess she doesn't mean robot.
Just robot. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Your kids were like, no, I don't think so. That was fun. We were dancing to I Got 5 on It. That was so much fun. And here's back to fun. We wish people understood some things about Parkinson's, like the non-motor symptoms, like the fact that we feel like we are in cement. Maybe we could make a little fun house for them. Try this suit on. It's a suit of armor. It's about 50 pounds for each arm. Then you have another person jumping on you and your feet are in cement. Oh, and did we mention someone will be banging on the suit of armor with a blunt object the entire day? Oh, and did we also mention you're going to be underwater? Does that about cover it?
That about cover it.
So, how would you know unless you know, right? We didn't know before we had it. I thought it was a shaky disease too. The shaking palsy.
I didn't. You know what? I didn't know about the freezing. And the first time that I actually saw someone freeze was when I was having morning coffee with a buddy of mine who also has Parkinson's, who's had it for a while. And we were sitting in his car talking, and I looked over at him and he says, he's just frozen. I'm like, what's wrong, dude? He goes, can you hand me my meds out of there? My meds are off and I'm freezing. And it kind of freaked me out because I hadn't seen anybody. I've seen people slow movements and kind of slow, but just see them like
Chin Man.
I had to get the oil can out and just to get him going.
It really does feel that way. It makes us feel a little more dependent, perhaps, on some people.
Yeah.
But we have a chance to raise some serious awareness with something coming up where we we can depend perhaps on our walking buddies, right? The Portland Hood to Coast relay team is coming up. Amber, let's start with you. Why are you participating in this race?
To see if I can do it. I am completely sedentary in my job. So this is a huge step outside my comfort zone. You know, I try to do everything I can to raise awareness for Parkinson's. If I have to go out there and make a fool out of myself and show people how I can't walk, then I'll do it.
Brian, what about you?
I want to see if I can do it too, because I mean, I've been used to walking, but over the past 2 months, I've kind of hit a different level with my Parkinson's. It's kicked into overdrive, meds not working as much. So I've had to go through a complete overhaul of medication we're still trying to figure out. The tightness in my upper back between my shoulders, which is causing my shoulder to freeze. I'm dealing with that. And then on top of it, once I get going, my lower back just spazzes up. And I'm hoping and praying that when it's my turn to take the baton and walk, that doesn't happen, because we will be dead last, or they'll be looking. It's supposed to end on the 28th. We won't be in until the 29th. Tell you that much.
I'm not going to lie to you. I think we might be dead last either way. So
I don't mind dead last. I just want to finish, you know? I'm hoping that nothing happens to where I can't finish it, since I'm the last walker. You know, you guys can all carry me in, you know?
We certainly will.
Yeah.
I'm going to be there waiting for you with somebody here in the studio today. Maybe a couple people, maybe, right? I'm going to rent a car. I'm going to get there somehow. I will marine crawl there if I have to, but I'm going to be interviewing you, hopefully, and helping interview you, rather, and just watching you, and with bells on and signs and sparklers and a parade. Okay, maybe not a parade, because you don't need
I want the parade now.
Okay, coming down the street like a parade, Macy's. Well, we're going to do this thing. Let's do it. Okay, we'll figure it out, right, Katrina? We're going to figure this out. But here's the thing. It's not so much that we want to race to win. It's that we would like to show what's really happening for us during these times that are tough. That's why I was going to do it. And I know that I freeze so much and I fall so much lately that I had to take a step back. But I'm so excited to be on the podcasting side and helping Brian out, helping Katrina out. It means the world to me. I feel so lucky to be with you. It's like you said, the disease kind of sucks, but we get to know each other. Thank you so much for talking with us today. I really appreciate you both and sharing all your candid thoughts on parenting and how to manage this. And thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thanks, Amber.
Thank you, Brian.
We are here with Amber Hesford, and Amber came all the way from Texas, and she has people at home watching.
I think.
Who might be watching you today?
My family, my work family, TikTok.
And what were your thoughts as you crossed that finish line?
Hallelujah, it's over. It's been a rough couple of days, but I'm so glad that I did it.
I want to give a shout out to a couple of boys you might know.
Yes. Jordan and Dominic, my two boys, they're 13 and 11, wanted to be here. There's no way I could have dragged them through this, or that they would have made it a mile into it, but they wanted to be here. At least see all the beautiful scenery.
Thank you for being such a joyful and humorous part of our team. We really appreciate you, Amber Hesford.
Thank you.
Thank you.
The Brian Grant Foundation empowers people impacted by Parkinson's to lead active and fulfilling lives. Help support our efforts at briangrant.org. A special thank you to Raphael Sadiq for providing the music for this podcast, and to Market of Choice for sponsoring the Portland to Coast team. This podcast is produced by Brian Griggs. Learn more at griggsproductions.com.